Hey, future OT. So I know you're here because you're ready to take the next step in your OT career and you're ready to pass the NBCOT exam. Now, I will always be real. We know that this exam can be really overwhelming, especially if you're just getting started. You're probably thinking like, where do I even begin? How do I get through all of this content? What resources should I use? And I get it, right? It's a big deal. But guess what? This is our starting line and I'm going to help you hit the ground running. So in this episode, we're going to cover exactly where you need to start. We're going to talk about how you prepare your mind just for this mental challenge, how you break down the different resources, how you build a practical study plan, like everything that you need to get started and to pass this exam without being super duper stressed, okay? So don't worry about it. If you've been feeling overwhelmed, right, we're going to get everything covered and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So first things first, we have to acknowledge that this is a very challenging moment in your career, okay? So your mindset around this exam is extremely important. And look, this exam is hard. It's not a joke. It's tough. It's meant to be tough. We're medical professionals. So you should have the understanding that I'm trying to prove myself so that I can become a clinician, okay? And you've made it this far. I mean, school was tough. Field work might have been tough depending on your clinical instructor, right? But you're here for a reason, and I'm going to be your coach, and I'm going to let you know that you can do it no matter what, okay? And this exam is either going to feel like hell, if you have a hard time taking standardized tests like I do, it may feel like hell, or to you, it just may be another simple challenge. But we all have to start somewhere, okay? This is the last hurdle, and I promise you, you're going to go on to have the most amazing OT career ever, all right? But we have to come in with a very clear, organized approach so that you don't get overwhelmed, okay? So get your mind right. We're getting ready to break it down of how you're going to get started and exactly what you need to do to make sure you're structured, intentional, you're organized, and you have everything that you need to be successful. So first things first, we need to talk about the resources. There's two different types of resources that you absolutely need to prepare for this exam. You need a testing resource and you need a learning resource. And I know you've probably heard me say this before, but you definitely need both. You cannot get by with just one. So keeping that in mind, you need to consider your budget, okay? The good resources are not cheap, right? So you need to be prepared to spend $300 to $400 for all of your resources, for the top tools out there. Now, some students spend more because they have it. Some students spend less, right? And they really utilize the free resources, and that's okay. But again, just having a budget in mind before you start preparing will help you, walk into this journey with not as much stress. So let's get back to those the two different resources. Okay, so we have our testing resources, and these resources are designed to help you understand where you stand, to help you simulate the actual exam. So they're going to give you the practice exams, they're going to give you scores, they're going to help you understand your strengths and your weaknesses, and then they're going to give you rationales to help you improve your performance. So for example, TMPOT's ExamSim is a really great example. So our ExamSim gives you practice exams on certain topics, on the different domains, and it really helps you simulate the testing experience, okay? And it also helps you identify your areas of weakness so you know what to focus on, and then it helps you understand your areas of strength so you know not to put too much time into those topics, okay? It's all about learning from your mistakes when you're using the testing resources. Now, I believe that you should have two testing resources, and I always make sure my students that I work with privately that they have two. That's just going to give you a really well-rounded understanding of how you're performing, and it's going to really help you understand where to focus your energy. Again, you don't have to have two, but having two is going to give you a lot of experience. It's going to really help you simulate the exam, and it's just going to give you variation, okay? Now, the other resource is the learning resource. So the learning resources are going to give you the content that you need to know. It's a lot of content, okay? So get your mind right because there's no way around it. Like, this exam requires us to know a lot of content. So it's really important that when you're looking into a learning resource, that you're looking for something that's clear, that's simple, that's straightforward, and how it breaks down the content. It should help you, it should make you feel like your learning is easier, okay? So when we're thinking about learning resources, we need to look for a resource that's going to teach in a way that helps you understand and conceptualize the content, not just memorize it. We don't have enough storage in our memory bank. And here's the thing. Not all resources are created equal. Some work better for certain people than others. So you really need to depend on how you learn and not just pick a resource for the heck of it, okay? Now, we're gonna dive deeper into the different resources out there in a different episode, but for now, just recognize that you need to align the resource with the type of learner that you are so you can absorb the material and absorb the content a lot easier, okay? And before you dive into trying to come up with some study plan based on a resource, I have created the knowledge checklist for you because it is so critical, like seriously, for you to understand what's going to be on the exam. I get so many emails from students saying that they took the exam and they had no clue that they needed to cover, I don't know, transfers or obesity. So this checklist is going to be an outline and it's going to cover the major topics that you need to cover. And look, it's exhaustive, it's overwhelming, it's a lot of information on a checklist, but you know me, I want you to be over prepared than be underprepared, okay? So I want you to grab your checklist. I'm gonna put it in the show notes so that you know exactly what to expect when you get to the exam. Now, with that being said, okay, the checklist is gonna give you a roadmap for studying. It's gonna make you or help you understand what you need to cover. We need to talk about your study schedule, okay? So once you get the checklist, you can use the checklist to create a study plan. But before you even come up with your study plan, you need to know how long are you going to be studying. So the average student will study for about 4 to 6 weeks for about 4 to 6 hours a day. Now, if you have a family, if you have a job, right, if you have a lot going on, then you may study a little bit longer, you know, a few more weeks, 8 weeks, or you may study less hours a day, and that's okay. It's not about a specific time frame. It's about doing what works for you and your schedule. So you want to make sure that you're adjusting your schedule based on your responsibilities, okay? Now, NBCOT, their statistics are very clear. Students who study between 4 to 6 weeks have higher pass rates, and students who study between 4 and 6 hours a day, we also see higher pass rates. But again, you have to adjust it based on what you have going on in your everyday life. So if you only can study 2 hours a day, but you spend the weekends to go hard, guess what? There is nothing wrong with that. I have hundreds of students who have to study and adjust their schedule that way. Now, let's get back to the actual schedule and using your checklist. So you're going to take your checklist and you're going to rate all of the topics from, you know, least familiar to most familiar, or maybe your weakest topic all the way up to your strongest topic. And you're going to plug that into your schedule based on how long you have to study, okay? So if you only have, you know, 4 weeks before your exam, then you want to take those weaker topics and you want to start there. You want to plug those in first, and then that way you're covering your hardest topics first, and that way at the end of your study schedule, you don't feel like you're stressed trying to, you know, get all of this super complex knowledge. No, you've already covered the hard stuff in the beginning. So at the end of your studies, as you're preparing to take the exam and your exam is getting closer and closer, that's when you get the more lighter topics or the topics that you're actually more familiar with, okay? So you take your topic checklist, you rate everything from weakest to strongest, you plug it into your schedule, and then that's going to give you the outline or the guide to understand how much you need to cover and how much time you have to do it. Now, we need to go back and kind of talk about your learning once you start studying. One of the best ways to increase your retention is to make sure that you're using multi-sensory learning. So what does that mean, right? That you're not just reading, but you're using visuals and auditory and kinesthetic learning, okay? So for example, reading. Reading the TMPOT PDFs, which students love, okay, right? That is only reading, that's passive learning. It's great, but you can't do it by itself. You need to combine some auditory, like some of the podcast lectures out there, like OT Exam Prepper. You want to use some of the visual resources that give you images and graphics, right, to really help the material come to life. And when you combine all of these sensory systems, the reading, the auditory, the visual, the kinesthetic, it really helps your brain retain and apply the material more effectively. So again, it's about really recognizing the type of learner that you are, but then also using that sensory, all the different sensory systems to help you be more successful. You would not believe how many students tell me oh, Kim, I only use your PDFs and I'm really struggling to, understand this concept. I'm like, because you need to mix it up, right? So bring in the lectures, bring in the podcasts, bring in the visual resources, switch it up. And again, it's just going to make your retention much easier, and it's just going to make the content stick, okay? So remember, this journey is not about being stress-free. There's going to be a little stress, okay? But it's more about you preparing your mind for the difficulty of the exam, you using the right resources, you having a really good study schedule, you just making sure that you're organized and everything is together. So let's kind of recap everything. So first and foremost, we need to acknowledge that this exam is going to be challenging and that there is so much content that they're expecting us to know. We are medical professionals, baby, right? So we expect it to be difficult. We accept the challenge. We really want to prove our knowledge and ourselves to the exam and to all the people out there who we're going to be treating and helping. Second, you need to make sure that you have the two essential resources. You need a testing resource that's giving you the practice exams and helping you understand where you stand. And then you need a learning resource or a couple learning resources that's going to actually teach you the content, and you should expect light bulbs to go off. It should really match your learning style, and you should feel really good about what you're learning and what you're retaining so that you're able to apply it effectively when you sit for the exam. And then you're going to get the knowledge checklist, okay? You're going to take that checklist, you're going to make sure you organize it based on your strengths and your weaknesses, and you're going to take all of those topics and those subcategories and you're going to plug it into your calendar. Rather your calendar is 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, or 8 weeks. You need to take all of those topics, plug them in, and make sure you're literally covering all your bases. And then when you're actually sitting and studying, this is where the magic happens. You have to make sure that you are utilizing all of the different sensory systems, okay? So you're reading the TMPOT PDFs to get that really clear understanding of the content. You're listening to lectures, you're listening to podcasts, and people explain the information to you very clearly and simply. You're looking at the different visuals, and maybe that's pictures of clients or pictures of adaptive equipment, or maybe that's charts and graphs, but you're using all of this different information to really help the process of learning just come alive. We're trying to move the information from this superficial level understanding to a really in-depth comprehensive understanding. So when you sit in front of that exam, you are like, yes, I know this, I got this, I feel good about the content. And then remember, guys, right? Try to make learning fun. And this is why the resources that you use is so critical, because if you're stressed out about learning and nothing's clicking, then your performance may not be as good. But if you're engaged with the content, you're excited about the content, you feel good about the content, that's just going to boost your confidence. It's going to literally just make you feel so much better about this entire process, okay? So as you're getting started, acknowledge that it's okay to feel overwhelmed. But if you follow these steps and make sure you have a very organized, intentional approach to how you get started, the rest of your journey will be smooth and seamless. You got this.